Okay, I wanted to point out some things that I've seen in the news because this is a Python with machine learning class. This is all machine learning related news, not so much Python news, but things that I have seen recently in the past couple days in the news. The first one of these is self-driving cars learn to read the body language of people on the street, and you don't think much about this, but this is actually a required activity for the cars. Is if somebody is flagging you to stop with their hand, you have to stop. And especially if it's a policeman, you're legally required to stop. And self-driving cars have to do that. If somebody's using a hand signal to indicate they're turning, or a variety of other things that you have to understand about human beings using hand signals in traffic. So these things are important, and you also have to be able to identify the difference between somebody, using a hand signal that indicates that the car has to stop versus somebody waving to their friend across the street. So, yeah, hand signals are one of those things that you have to identify. Now, another kind of utility that we're seeing an increasing amount of is artificial intelligence used for improving photography. This one wants to remove unwanted objects like fences, with a nice picture there showing you how a fence is removed. Certainly, if you use an Apple iPhone, one of the big things is it has an AI processor on the phone in like the Apple iPhone 11. And that AI processor does a massive amount of work to improve the quality of the photos that you take. So that if you're taking a portrait photo, it comes out like a professional looking portrait photo because it sets up the camera right to do that. And that's a fairly complicated set of things. But that is what the AI processor is up to. Now, here's one. Okay. You'll notice that the AI, which is a machine learning system, is beating a human pilot at dogfights. In fact, if you were to go and read this entire article, you'll find out that it beat them 5 out of 5 in every test by a substantial margin. So the day of, humans running dogfights is probably rapidly coming to an end. The AI can do it faster, better, quicker, and have a better understanding of what threats and threat detection are. Now, that's not removing the pilot from the plane, because the pilot does other good things inside the plane, like decision making. But in some circumstances, yeah, keeping the pilot safe is going to be up to an artificial intelligence. Now, in a completely different type of thing, we're seeing AI, again, machine learning, looking at images to confirm 50 new exoplanets. And I think that this is just a really cool thing. We're seeing an increasing amount of machine learning technology used for doing research to tease real facts out of obscure data and analyze large sets of data. One of the first things that computers were used for was at Bentley Park and the World War II. And the reason they used a computer is because they had a process for decrypting German codes, not the Enigma machine, they'd already broken that, but the other one being used for their high security transmissions. And the process was so intensive and so complex that humans couldn't reliably do it. And what they did is automate it so that it did this complex process. But what we see today in machine learning is that it's not just complicated processes. As we get vast data sets, the data sets are so big that human beings can't analyze it. But you can get machine learning to analyze these complex data sets. And I mentioned to you before, I think, that they're finding that a machine learning on images, specifically radiology, is working better than human beings at analyzing things like breast cancer. Well, not only are they finding that they can train machines to do a better job at being a radiologist and analyze breast cancer, but they're also looking at machine learning systems to help not just with analyzing, but actually in surgery to use as a part of the treatment for breast cancer. So both of these things are going on basically simultaneously. The identification part is certainly happening faster than the other one, but both of them are happening. I thought I'd just run through a couple things in the news. I know we're not to the machine learning part of the class yet, but it's coming. And these are things that have been announced just in the past few days. And, we're not going to see an end to this kind of stuff happening in the news. If you start paying attention to this kind of stuff, you're going to see more and more of this for decades to come. This is the Industrial Revolution that's happening. And a great number of things that people used to do by hand are going to be replaced by systems that can either help them or out and out replace what they're doing with a better system that's automated. Now, some of these are really, really hard to do. You go back to the self-driving cars. That is not an easy thing to do, and that's why it's taking years and billions of dollars of research. And in fact, the biggest problem that they're having with self-driving cars is actually lack of data. They don't have enough images. A Tesla car collects something on the order of 19 terabytes of data a day. It cannot push that data over a wireless network back to Tesla. Tesla could process it, they need the data, but it can't get it back in any reasonable fashion. So most of it right now is being thrown away. But we are about to get 5G, and 5G is going to change that for the auto industry. It's somewhere between 50 and 100 times as fast. And it doesn't cost them a lot because they're willing to use it at off-peak times, like have the car transfer data at 2 in the morning when most people are sleeping. So there is the bandwidth out there, and it's not going to clog up other things. That also means it's cheap bandwidth for them. So that is going to dramatically change the process. Now, the flip side of that is that's going to be more data coming in than we've seen from anything ever before. The biggest data collector in the world has been NASA for decades, but suddenly automotive industry, Tesla, Waymo, and Cruise are going to be the ones that are going to have data coming in troves vaster than anything we've ever seen before. Way more data. And that's what's going to make the difference ultimately in self-driving cars.